And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And joining me, of course, is my co-host Matt Dudek.
Hey there, everybody.
Matt, of course, you can find at his relatively new Twitter handle now at Horizon Matt, and you can find the podcast on Twitter as well at Horizon RT. And Matt, judging from the background noise, it sounds like we have another guest here. We've got Mark Forden with us. Mark, very good to have you on.
Hey guys, happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me out.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about your relatively new site, and obviously we'll talk about why exactly we have you on today.
Yeah, so I just started my own blog about it's everything about Chicago sports and different like Chicago music. I've been writing for about a year now over at Sox on 35th, which is a blog that just writes about everything for the White Sox. And then I just kind of had the feeling that I wanted to expand on what I was writing on a little bit and kind of broaden my horizons. So I created my own site, and there I've just been blogging about all different things Chicago sports and pretty much everything that they've got going on music-wise and sports-wise recently.
Okay. And the reason, obviously, since Chicago, because this is you caught our attention obviously because, as we know, UIC is a part of this whole the Chicago sports scene. So and with UIC, obviously, we've had quite a few discussions about the goings on about the Flames, and more specifically their Steve McLean, their I don't want to say embattled coach yet, because I don't know, but every time we turn around, his seat either gets really super hot or really super warm. So, but yeah, so everybody can find everybody can find your blog on Twitter at NDL Official, correct?
Yes, the handle on Twitter is NDL Official, and then the website will be www.numbersdon'tlie23.com.
Okay, great. So
I thought we brought Mark in to talk about Kendrick Nunn. Am I off on this? Fine, we can talk UIC.
We'll get to Kendrick Nunn, and I have this very strange feeling we'll get to Kendrick Nunn sooner rather than later. Actually, I'm speaking of Horizon League players in the NBA. I before we even get started, I want to say congratulations to former Green Bay player Alfonso McKinney, who got himself locked in with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I guess I should say congratulations, but it is the Cleveland Cavaliers, so it might be congratulations and I'm sorry all at the same time.
They've got Andre Drummond now. They're great.
They are, but but they got. I don't understand that. I'm still trying to figure out the logic behind hiring John Beeline as their head coach. I'm still trying to figure that part out, but I moved away from Cleveland. I don't give a shit anymore. So, so moving. But congratulations, to Alfonso McKinney. Obviously, again, formerly a Green Bay. So that brings us up to two former Horizon League players in the association, including Kendrick Nunn, who, by the way, yeah, and by the way, and Kendrick Nunn will be seeing a lot of next weekend during All-Star Weekend, because I believe he's in the Rising Stars Challenge.
Yeah, he's won three straight Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month from the NBA. So yeah, he's absolutely in the Rookie Challenge, the Rising Stars game.
Yeah, so you definitely don't want to miss that. I think that's is that Friday or Saturday? Again, I don't spend a whole hell of a lot of time on the NBA.
I think that's Friday, honestly.
Gotcha.
I think that's after the Celebrity All-Star game, but I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's Friday though.
Yeah, you want to know? Yeah, well, so that's gonna be an interesting. That should be actually pretty exciting, I'm sure, for those of you who are obviously into the NBA. Not before the playoffs, of course. But kind of getting back to current Horizon League players. We're still in the middle of a logjam. I mean, it's breaking up a little, but not a whole hell of a lot. So now we are at a point where Cleveland State has kind of fell off a little bit. Youngstown State has finally broken the what I call the Cleveland State curse because Youngstown State lost 5 games to what they call it to Cleveland State for some reason, like Cleveland State was their kryptonite or something. And good news is that now Youngstown State is a half game up on everybody, and one of the best. But there's still this logjam. There's still this logjam between the Flames, UIC, and for reasons that escape me, the two what they call it teams, the two
Wisconsin teams?
Yes, the two Wisconsin teams.
What are you looking for here, Bob?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I lost my stats today, so that
So you've got Youngstown State, who's up a half game, but it's Youngstown, Milwaukee, Green Bay, and UIC are all jammed up there in the 3 through 6 spot.
Yeah, which is interesting because we didn't think that was going to happen. Now, Youngstown State is a half game up because obviously they played only the one game this past weekend. And then at 7 and 6, it seems like we still have this pattern of all these teams in here, and inexplicably nobody seems to want to get away from each other. And they have opportunities too. They have all these opportunities to do so, and yet they don't.
UIC could have absolutely put some distance in there this week,
indeed.
And didn't.
UIC actually had an opportunity to sweep the weekend at home against both Wisconsin teams, perfect opportunity, and they came out of Milwaukee, and the Milwaukee game was just an absolute laugher for them. I can't believe what happened to them, honestly.
They got slapped.
Yeah, exactly. So and then they turn around and basically do the same thing. They turn around and do the same thing to Green Bay. Make sense of that.
I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you hate to just keep saying we've said it, but we have. Like, nobody wants to take over.
No.
You've got your top 2 teams that have separated themselves, great. You've got your bottom, great. And this middle section really isn't getting any better. Another week goes by that nothing has really changed, and nobody wants to seize the opportunity to set themselves apart.
You know that Spider-Man meme where you got the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other? That's basically 3 through 6 at this point.
Yes.
So Mark, I think obviously because we have you on to get kind of the UIC perspective on this, and I guess we kind of want to get your insight as to what the heck is going on with them. Every time we kind of count them out as kind of done, or because let's be honest here again, we're talking about a guy like Steve McLean who he's more or less fighting for his job at this point. And you see kind of flashes of the UIC we were supposed to see, and then there's games like the Milwaukee game where it just goes away. And we're not really 100% on that one. And I think we might have lost Mark. I think he can hear us, but we can't talk to him.
Mark, no.
Great, I broke Skype. That's fun.
No.
That was not supposed to happen.
Hello, guys.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Hey.
I apologize. My microphone got muted. I have no idea how that really happened.
Actually,
my bad.
Actually, that would be my fault because I wanted to make sure because I was hearing a bunch of background noise on your end. Sorry. And then apparently you couldn't get unmuted, so that was also my bad.
I apologize. That is my fault.
So yes. So what the heck is going on over there?
Yeah, so looking at their record, they're 12-14, which it feels like they've won a lot more games than that. I mean, they've won 6 of their last 8 games, but it's just games like Milwaukee where I don't really know what happens. And then I specifically remember, I think last Saturday they went to Detroit and played a not very great Detroit team, and they lost by a point. And they were up 5 with about a minute left, end up losing the game by a point. There's just like a couple games that you look at in here where you definitely know that they are capable of winning, that they
Yeah.
just don't pull out. Like, you can even go all the way back to this December. Illinois State lost by a point. Some of these conference games, they were really winnable games for them, and I just feel like they haven't really lived up to their full potential this season.
And then
What do you have any insight or any thoughts about why that is? Is it a McLean issue? Is it a personnel issue? What is it a culture issue? Like, why do you think that's the case?
I think it's just tough on them because last year losing Tarkus Ferguson and not Tarkus Ferguson, Tayo Dices to I'm pretty sure he's in the G League now.
yeah, oh, Tayo,
And
yeah. Dikembe Dixon
yeah.
too. Yeah, definitely Dikembe Dixon.
Yeah, and Dixon. Yeah, just losing 2 really big seniors like that. You know, they're pretty young, experienced, or not pretty young and inexperienced. They've got Tarkus Ferguson still on the roster. He's a senior this year. And then they've also got, I feel like Jordan Blount, I think you say his last name, from Ireland. I feel like he hasn't really played to his full potential this season also.
The question I have about Jordan Blount though is that, remember, he's coming back from that knee injury. Is it is it an issue of he's still not 100%? I mean if you look at how he's playing, I mean he is definitely getting into it, and as I've said over and over again with no fail, obviously. He's Loudon loves kryptonite, and it showed against Wright State because they beat him.
Yeah, that was a great game for them.
So it just seems that it's weird because you see on paper that UIC has all of this talent. They have all these guys. I mean, if you get, it seems to me the best for them. The best scenario that they can put out, specifically in the backcourt, is when you have Godwin Bowen running the point, and then you got Adi and Ferguson off ball being able to make their shots. And it just seems to me that that's not when it's happening. It's excellent. So case in point, Green Bay, they were able to run their offense that way. Shots were able to fall. And they were able to get it going. But at the same time, then you have the Milwaukee game where absolutely nothing went right for them. And you also saw, you came very close to seeing that same exact scenario against Cleveland State the week before. And had Cleveland State been able to hit their foul shots, that would have been a different story for them. Right. But you all, at the same time, again, you also see how easily UIC could have won 7 out of 8 if not for a LeGrand buzzer beater at the end of the Detroit Mercy game. So it's a weird situation for them, UIC, and again, especially when you're talking about a scenario where you have all this. It seems maybe we've just had overinflated expectations for them this season. And they've just kind of not. They've obviously not come to fruition if they're back at they're mired in the middle of the pack like they have been for this whole entire season. And you have to ask the questions: is it because of the injuries? Is it because of the coaching? Is it because of something else that we don't know about?
Yeah, I mean, you have to think a little bit of it might be with the coaching. I mean, I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but has Steve McLean won a Horizon League title at UIC?
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, when Steve McLean inherited this team, it was what was it? I think they had won I think they were on a conference. They were on a losing streak in the conference. And I can't remember how long it was, but it was very, very long before Steve McLean took over. Where Steve McLean has taken them is a better place than where they were, but it just still seems kind of blah.
Yeah, they were in the CIT or CBI or something,
Yeah.
something like that.
Hmm.
Like they're definitely uh above average program. I mean, maybe just average, but you look at their roster and they really do have a lot of talent.
That's a lot of
It
that's
begs the
that's a little too
question.
much talent to be average. That's all
Yeah,
I'm saying.
I
I mean,
I agree.
it seems
So
it.
So, Mark, my question for you, as someone who's like down in the trenches with them, like, how is UIC seen in the Chicago scene? Like, are they able to recruit Chicago? I've always heard that it's actually tough for them because a lot of the great Chicago players want to get out of Chicago. Like, what's that scene like for them, and what does UIC need to do to get over this hump?
It really is, especially because it really is tough for them to recruit around Chicago, especially because there's a lot there's 13 Division One schools in Illinois that have a Division One college basketball team. So there's a lot of competition. There's in Chicago alone you have Loyola, um, Northwestern, DePaul, Chicago State, and then you got obviously UIC. So they have a lot
Calling
of
Chi-
competition.
calling Chicago State a Div 1 program is very kind, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a whole nother subject. But anyways, so they definitely do have some competition when recruiting. But I did look at their roster before the season started, and I thought that they would really have a chance to compete for a Horizon League championship this year. I mean, and they still do, but I expected their record to be a lot better than what it is. I didn't really expect them to have double-digit losses at this point in the season, if I'm being honest.
I think that was really the expectation for a lot of us. I mean, some of us picked them to finish second in the conference, so
Yeah.
which is obviously not happening. But the way the logjam has happened, there's still a distinct possibility they'll finish in the top half. They could definitely finish in the top half of the conference. But at the same time, when you're looking at UIC and you also look at a when you look at the schedule and you look at Milwaukee and you look at Green Bay and see what they have to face at the end, they're tough part of the schedule. Green Bay and Milwaukee's schedule specifically near the tail end is a little easier. They already Milwaukee and Green Bay obviously got Northern Kentucky and Wright State out of the way, so their final schedule involves playing each other, of course, and then Cleveland State and Youngstown State. And I think um, it's definitely. And then you look at UIC, it's a little bit more daunting task because they have to, so it's not a very good situation for. And I really, and again, and going into. And looking at the upper half of that 3 through 6, you have Youngstown State, who there's no reason the next 4 games for them are there's no reason that Youngstown State shouldn't be able to go 3 out of 4 in that in their last road games, because they have their last road games are Oakland, Detroit Mercy, and the Wisconsin teams. And the way that Youngstown State is playing, there's no reason why they shouldn't be at least 3. They shouldn't go 3 out of 4 on that. Except for the fact, but the problem that they have, of course, is they are not a great road team by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, if you look at both, you look at the matchups, there is a distinct possibility. There should be some leeway in there. You would think.
I honestly think that there's a scenario where UIC could finish out the season 4-1. I mean, next weekend for them is going to be absolutely brutal. Going on the road to face Wright State on Friday, and then again on the road to face Northern Kentucky on Sunday. But if they could squeeze past one of those and get a win, I think they could finish the season with three straight wins against IUPUI, Detroit at home.
I'm excited for Oakland to come there only because I know that Oakland's got a whole thing planned, not just through athletics, but through the university. Oakland's going to have a couple hundred people in that gym, and a lot of times that's more than UIC puts in that gym, so that could become a bit of a home game for Oakland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
got a couple buses going to Chicago for something else, and that's part of the trip is the UIC game.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't imagine UIC is having like sometimes it's hard to really tell how many people are in the crowd when you're watching the games unless it does like the whole panoramic view, but it really doesn't look like they're having that many people. And even when you watch like a Loyola, who I know Loyola went to the Final Four last year, 2 years ago, but when you watch Loyola, the whole student body's coming out to watch the game. They're filling Gentile Arena up, and you just don't really see that same type of atmosphere for UIC with the students coming out to the game and whatnot.
Do you ever make it out to games, Mark? Like, is that something that happens or not terribly often, or how does that work for you? Just curious.
I haven't had a chance to yet to make it to a UIC game, but I'm definitely gonna catch one of the final 3 games of the year for sure.
I'm just curious because I mean, like you said, it's hard to tell on TV, but like I don't ever see when I do watch UIC games, you don't see any fan. You know, they have their pyromaniacs student section in theory, but I don't know if they're actually ever at games. Is there anybody there? Like, it just looks
Right.
like it looks like a nice venue, but it looks just empty.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And their court's beautiful. I mean, I really like their court. Everything with the Chicago flag. I'm a really big fan of their court and all, but nice arena too. It looks like they've got a really nice arena too, and I just rarely see the fans there.
I mean, I imagine that the Chicago ticket is tough to sell just because there's so much you can do at any point. Like you said, not just the number of college basketball teams there, but just so much to do in the city. And, going out to a mid-major game is tough to sell. So you've got to really find that fan base and get them in those doors every game. And they seem like they're not doing that.
Right, right. And that's where the success of the program is really such a big tool in getting those fans out there. If they could even win one Horizon League championship in like 5 years and go to the NCAA tournament, that's huge for them. Just to have a spot in the NCAA tournament in 1 year, that would be huge for them. Just at least getting one in about 5 years.
I mean, Northwestern gets people in their building. They've
True.
been in the tournament once in the past 70 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, and you look at Loyola. You mentioned Loyola, by the way, former Horizon League member for Loyola, who you wish they would have been. They would have put up these numbers when they were actually in the Horizon League. But it's true. I mean, when you look at Loyola, how the dynamic with Loyola, where their whole entire scene changed once they got in, not even the Final Four, getting into the tournament for the first time in 30-something years. You saw the switch getting flipped over there, and I guess the big concern is that you're not getting that from UIC. UIC, of course, it's not whatever they're. I mean, everything that they're trying to do, from the court to the kind of the kind of leaning into the whole Chicago motif with their 312 tip-offs. I absolutely love those. But
Right.
if they're not producing, if you're in however many years Steve McLean's been at UIC, and they're still hovering around that 500 mark, which it seems like they've been doing for the last 2 or 3 seasons, in spite of what their roster has to offer. And you add in that extra wrinkle of the fact that he's got a new boss to impress in Michael Lippitz, their AD who just came on. It almost seems like it's a perfect storm for we're going to see somebody new next year at UIC.
Yeah, I mean, they really have been sitting around in mediocrity since I've been really following them and really paying attention to them. I haven't really seen that full season where they look really good. I mean,
here's the kicker to that. But again, the funny part is mediocrity is actually a vast improvement from where they were.
Yeah.
I mean, because before Steve McLean and they were absolutely terrible. I mean, they were basic for years. UIC for a few years, UIC was basically stuck at the bottom of the Horizon League standings, looking up at everybody. So, but again, as I'm sure I've mentioned at least once or twice on this podcast, is that you know it seems like they can only get but so far, and they need somebody to get them over the top. Not unlike, and I'm not the best comparison I can make Horizon League wise to their situation is the situation that Wright State had in the early 2000s when they had Paul Biancardi, who they brought in after Ed Schilling, and Biancardi, he mired in mediocrity. I mean, he was at or around 500, and it probably would have stayed that way too had he not been a part of that whole Ohio State thing that got him, basically fired. Basically fired for his role in that. They bring in Brad Brownell. Brad Brownell flips the switch, and it kind of builds the foundation for the Wright State you see today, where you go from Brad Brownell to Billy Donlin to now Scott Nagy, who and you kind of see that.
Well, and really, if you think about it, Billy Donlin was doing a nice job, but they fired him. We were all a little taken aback. There's a lot of money spent there, but at the end of the day, they made the right move. It got them to that next step.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's I think that is the situation that UIC finds himself in right now. Is that and they're actually where they Steve McLean has gotten them to this point where he has gotten the attention back to a little bit of the attention back to UIC basketball, but it seems to me that they need a guy who can get them back over the top. And
I feel like with McLean, McLean drew up the plans for the heist, but he can't execute it. They need someone with the experience to carry out the rest of this heist that he has started.
That was perfectly said.
Well, I mean, we have compared him to Steve McLean is the last B movie villain the B movie villain we have now that Dennis Felton isn't here anymore. Oh man, you know what? Speaking of B movie villain and Dennis Felton, because you knew that I had to bring this up, just because I just feel like. I feel a conspiracy theory coming on, because I've never really masked my my I don't want to say open disdain, but it's just the way things went when Dennis Felton was here just seemed off the whole time.
A
little bit, yes. So and I just want to talk about this a little bit, and it's just wackadoodle stuff. So if you guys aren't into conspiracy theories, just fast forward through this podcast.
Bob, I swear to God, if this involves aliens,
it does not involve aliens. It involves Ukrainian oligarchs, though.
Oh, I'm in on this theory. Keep going. I love this.
Okay, so in the city of Cleveland, there was this one guy. There was this Ukrainian oligarch by the name of Ihor Kolomoisky, who was actually buying up properties in downtown Cleveland. And at the time, this was like 2012. At the time, everybody thought he was like the best thing since sliced bread. Because let's face it, it's downtown Cleveland in 2012. No, other than building a bunch of apartments, nobody was really doing anything at that point in time. Obviously, things have changed a little bit in Cleveland, but it is what it is. So he actually bought a couple of what I want to call some of the signature buildings within downtown Cleveland. He didn't actually do anything with them. I think he was just using it as kind of a front to launder his money, as we found out later. Because he bought the properties and didn't do jack squat with them. You maybe and basically everybody in the city pretty much fell over in love with the guy because he was buying stuff in Cleveland, so there was no problem there. Fast forward to 2019, and apparently the guy has been I guess he's been defrauded. I think he defrauded a bank, at least one bank. He's back in the Ukraine now. Apparently, he has. It's a weird scenario. I guess he's like really involved with the current president of the Ukraine right now. And you need to ask yourself. I guess if you've gotten to this point, and thank God you have, you need to ask yourself, well, what the hell does this have to do with Cleveland State? Well, I'm going to tell you. Of course, if you follow me, you already know this story. So this Ukrainian oligarch's son, Gregory Kolomoisky, was actually a walk-on for at least one semester at Cleveland State.
Wow.
He was, yes, and we didn't. And we didn't know who he was at the time because Norris Cole, the great Cleveland State player Norris Cole, tweeted out when he was still playing in Israel that he had tweeted out this picture with a Gregory Kolomoisky, talking about how he was this new player for Cleveland State. I had never heard of the kid before. The signing period was over. I had no idea. This is 28. I had no idea who this kid was. No idea. And then, I mean, there's no record of, there's no like statistics or record or anything of this kid. No idea who he is. So, a couple of, when Tom Muskowski still had his message board up, some of the fans on the message board were poking around a little bit, and they came across this Ukrainian oligarch Ihor Kolomoisky. And so the whole scenario was, I guess, we didn't make the connection that Gregory and Ihor Kolomoisky were related at the time. It seemed like it would make sense that they were. But fast forward to last year when basically the shit hits a fan with all these properties and this, and this oligarch is getting, accused of fraud and everything. And it comes out, yes, Gregory was in fact Ihor Kolomoisky's, is Ihor Kolomoisky's son. So none of this should actually matter, okay? None of this should actually matter except for one small thing, which is in 2018, Cleveland State was planning a trip to Italy. Because as we know, obviously, all these some of these teams go abroad to play basketball games. Cleveland State was planning to go to Italy. In fact, I think I had Dennis Felton on the podcast talking a little bit about the Italy trip near the end of the podcast. And the issue was with them, they were in need of, I think, $20,000 to pay for the expenses and make the trip. And they were kind of coming up short because I'm not going to lie to you, it just never seemed like there was much of a push for Cleveland State to, specifically Dennis Felton, to. He didn't seem to me like I'm going to go solicit donations kind of guy. Not as you see right now, because they've basically, everybody in athletics has basically leaned into the whole donations drive. Dennis Gates, everybody does that. Dennis Felton didn't really do that.
He probably didn't think he had to. He just figured he'd steal it from the bank during the heist.
And I'm getting to that point. Well, he may not have had to. But, so why does this tie in? And this is where the tinfoil hat comes on. So it seems like a weird coincidence that this Gregory Kolomoisky, the son of this Ukrainian oligarch who was buying up all these properties in Cleveland, magically shows up as a walk-on the Cleveland State basketball team a month before Cleveland State ends up going to Italy. And by the way, goes to Italy and has the money. I don't know.
Something's off about that.
And I would love for somebody to please tell me, Bob, you are psychotic. Stop it. You are just a weird ass dude who is just coming up with this crazy shit. Just somebody tell me that I am wrong. Just emphatically wrong. I feel like I have spent entirely too much time thinking about this. It's just so, because it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't matter. Because all the parties involved are gone anyway. But I just for my own curiosity, it just drives me crazy. And I can't believe I just spent an entire chunk of time on this podcast talking about this. It's yeah, I think I probably all the listeners we had, I think we just lost them.
I
Hey,
mean,
at
it's
least we know that,
interesting.
though.
It's something to think about. It's something to think about.
I mean, it's not a secret that this stuff happens in college hoops, though. Like, Daddy had money. He made the donation, and his kid could play a little ball, so he walked on for a semester, and then it was gone. And I think he plays professionally somewhere else where
He
Daddy's
plays
got money
he
from.
actually
Like,
funny thing, yeah, actually as a postscript, actually Gregory plays professionally in the Ukraine now because I guess as I understand it correctly, before the new president Zelensky in the UK was elected in the Ukraine, Ihor Kolomoisky actually had to stay away from the Ukraine for a little bit because apparently there was a little heat on him. Because so he was splitting his time between Switzerland and Israel, and hence why. But now apparently the heat's off, and now he's back in the Ukraine, and so is Gregory. So I don't know. It just
wow.
it all this it just yeah it I feel like I'm the living right now. I'm the living embodiment of that Charlie Day conspiracy theory pegboard gif. That's where I'm at right now.
I know what you're talking about. I followed that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm probably going to post it up on the. Yeah. Oh my god. All right. Could we talk about something else? I've pretty much wasted our time with this.
Hey, so normal week in the horizon. Everybody beat up on everybody else. Wright State's very good. Northern Kentucky's very good. Oakland's not very good. What else am I missing? Everybody's pretty much where they're supposed to be, and nothing really changed this week.
Oh, and IUP, and now IUPUI, and we got to talk about IUPUI.
Oh,
you
man,
you
I was
know
really
I
hoping
have to
to
talk about IUPUI, and I have to talk about IUPUI because of the fact that they. It just seems to me that IUPUI has all the pieces in place to be a better team than they actually are. They really do. I mean, when you got guys like Jalen Minette and Marcus Burke in your backcourt, and they can score in bunches.
Grant Weatherford, who's like the poor man's Tyler Sharp, like great.
I mean,
He's
yeah.
he's like a knockoff version. It's great.
I mean, and I'm glad you brought up Grant Weatherford because Grant Weatherford in the Milwaukee game he fouled out, and so they had to bring in the freshman Mike DePersia, and Mike DePersia did a great job filling in for Grant Weatherford. But you have how is it possible? I don't understand this, like, even a little bit, where you have all these pieces in place, and you're still 2-11 in the conference, and you lost 20 games. That defies explanation. Because
They're just not putting it together. I mean, I'm sure some of it's coaching, some of it's just players not finishing plays. I mean, for IUPUI to win this year, we've seen it's got to be Burke and Minette have just rocking games, just can't be stopped, and that wasn't the case. I mean, Burke had a chance to send that game to double overtime and missed the last throw.
He had the chance to. And he also had the chance to win the game, Matt.
Yeah, but let's not talk about that because I know what comes.
Yeah.
Don't do
it. Okay. So if you heard the game, I'm sorry, but if you actually watched the game on ESPN Plus, the color guy, he apparently he got overly excited near the closing seconds. By the way, yeah, that's gonna be that made me laugh so hard. That's like my new messages notification tone right now. That guy, because that's.
Do you have the clip? Do you have it clipped or no?
I do have it. I sent it to you. You have it.
Oh.
I'm not gonna get. It's not a thing I'm gonna put on the air. First of all, but again, I keep. But yeah, again, you had Minette, and in that game, IUPUI against Milwaukee, you had Minette and Burke go off for 49 points between them. Minette had 26, Marcus Burke had 23. Grant Weatherford, before he fouled out, he had 13 points. Elijah Goss is a rebounding machine. He got another 13 rebounds against Milwaukee. And it just seemed, and again, Mike DePersia filling in for Grant Weatherford did an excellent job. I mean, he was running the point. He I mean, but it just seems like they're just not putting it together.
You've got to win close games, and that it's the same problem I see with Oakland. Oakland's lost 9 one-possession games. I'm sure IUPUI has lost something similar. They're not closing out and finishing at the end.
Yeah, that's true. And it does. I mean, I don't. I guess the question that I have would be, would this be a situation? Would this situation be different with Jason Gardner? And I don't think it would be. I really don't. I think he. No. I mean, I don't. Jason Gardner, Byron Rim. I don't think it really mattered who was going to be the coach of this team. It just
the better question is, would it be different with Cameron Justice?
Excellent question. And also, more to the point, would it be different had Calvin Temple stayed?
Maybe.
Well, no, actually. Well, see, that's the thing, though, because I don't know. I think that would have complicated if Cameron Justice had stayed. I think that would have complicated matters, because then you would have had you would have had Cameron Justice, Marcus Burke, and Jalen Minette all fighting for minutes, all fighting for their shots. I think it would have actually made the situation worse, actually. But that's just me. I could be wrong. But that South Florida game seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, right.
So, but that's kind of how the whole thing goes. I mean, and it's weird because and that's kind of how it's gone for IUPUI this whole time. No, and and again, you see flashes of it because the Thursday morning game against Green Bay. The Thursday morning game against Green Bay.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, and it remains ridiculous because, the field trip game.
Yeah, with all those screaming kids. Every time it's a morning game, you always know there's going to be a bunch of screaming kids there on a weekday.
Mm-hmm.
It's a better atmosphere than they ever have for their games.
That is true. True. But what's interesting in that one is that they actually got back into that game even though they were down by 20. So again, you saw kind of flashes of it, but it doesn't go anywhere. It generally doesn't go anywhere. And by the way, speaking of the IUPUI day game, if you have not seen it already, we've tweeted it out on the podcast site, on the podcast Twitter page. The Barstool, I guess, did a report on. They actually just took pictures of all the miserable adults that were at that game. It was the funniest thing on the planet. And the punchline of that was actually it hit a little too close to home. Was actually a video I guess somebody had done a couple years back. Try kind of a man on the street kind of thing, asking random students at IUPUI if they were going to an IUPUI game, and most of them just ran away from him like he was handing out free samples of the Ebola virus. It would have been funny, but if you could, there's a very distinct possibility that scenario could have played out at a lot of our campuses. So it hit a little too close to home for me. So, all right. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. So Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Once again, everybody, tell everybody where they can find where they can log in and see your blog and where you are online.
Oh yeah, again, thanks so much, guys, for having me. It was really a blast coming out here talking some Horizon League basketball, some UIC basketball with you guys. So if anyone's curious on reading just some sports blogs and some music blogs about everything around Chicago, my Twitter handle is @NDLofficial, and then you can find me on my website at www.numbersdon'tlie23.com.
All right, great. Again, thank you very much for joining us, Mark. And as always, you can find episodes of the Horizon League, which don't include conspiracy theories, on our website, horizonroundtable.com. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. And, of course, you can find us on your Amazon or Google devices. Thank you for listening. And, of course, do not forget, next week we're going to have Todd Buckingham at Major_Midback with us talking about fan rankings now that we close out the show. And then that's it. Well, not that. We got plenty of stuff. You don't want to miss it. So tune in soon, and thank you guys for listening.